It was early autumn when Claire Morgan decided to take her younger brother Ethan for a quiet weekend trip. They had been through a rough summer. The loss of their mother had left their small family fractured, and Claire thought a cabin retreat might help them heal. The cabin she booked sat near a place called Hollow Lake, deep in the backwoods of Vermont. The area wasn't a tourist attraction. In fact, the locals didn't even talk much about it. Claire found it listed on a small rental website, described simply as a secluded lakefront cabin, perfect for peace and quiet. When they arrived, the drive itself already felt different. The road narrowed to a single lane surrounded by endless walls of pine trees. Fog hung low over the twisting path, and the air carried that sharp scent of wet leaves and cold earth. The cabin itself looked ordinary. A wooden porch, peeling paint, and a small dock stretching out toward the lake. But the lake, something about it felt wrong. Its water was unnaturally still, almost mirror-like, and dark as though it hid something deep beneath. Ethan had immediately noticed it too. "Why's the water so black?" he whispered as they carried their bags inside. Claire forced a smile. "It's just the way some lakes are." Nothing to worry about, but even she couldn't shake the unease crawling up her spine. That first night, things were quiet. They made dinner, lit the fireplace, and tried to laugh about old memories. But around midnight, Claire woke to the sound of water dripping. She thought Ethan had left the tap running, but when she checked, the cabin sinks were dry. The sound wasn't coming from inside. It was coming from the dock. She stepped out onto the porch, shivering against the cold night air. The moonlight made the lake glisten like polished glass. That's when she saw it, ripples spreading across the surface, though nothing had touched the water. And then faintly, she saw what looked like a pale hand rising up, only to vanish again beneath the surface. Claire froze, unable to even scream. But when she blinked, the lake was still once more. Maybe it was her imagination. Maybe grief was playing tricks on her. That's what she told herself, until the next morning. The following day, Ethan was unusually quiet. He sat by the dock sketching something in his notebook. When Claire asked what it was, he hesitated before showing her. The drawing was crude but clear, a figure standing in the lake, its body long and thin, with hollow eyes staring straight ahead. Claire's heart dropped. "Where did you see that?" Ethan didn't look up. "It was calling me last night. The second night was worse." Claire tried to convince herself that Ethan's drawing was just imagination, but by evening he seemed restless. He sat near the dock for hours, staring at the black water, humming a tune Claire didn't recognize. When she finally pulled him inside, he muttered, "Mom's voice is out there. She wants me to join her." Claire froze. Their mother had drowned the previous summer, in a boating accident. Ethan had never spoken about it since the funeral. That night, Claire locked all the doors and kept Ethan close. But sometime past midnight, she woke to the sound of the front door creaking open. Ethan's bed was empty. Her heart pounded as she grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. The beam cut through the mist, landing on Ethan's small frame at the edge of the dock. He was standing barefoot, whispering into the lake. "Mom!" "I'm here," Claire screamed his name, but before she could reach him, the water began to churn violently, waves slapping against the dock. Something long and pale broke the surface, reaching for Ethan's legs. Claire lunged forward, yanking him back just as a skeletal hand clawed upward. For a moment, she saw it clearly. A hollow-faced figure, hair drifting like weeds, eyes like empty sockets glowing faintly white. The thing stared at her before sinking soundlessly back into the depths. Ethan sobbed, trembling in her arms. "It said we can all be together again, if I just go in." By morning, Claire was desperate to leave. She packed their bags, but when she tried to start the car, the engine wouldn't turn over. The gas tank was full. Nothing made sense. With no signal on her phone, she drove Ethan into the nearby town once a mechanic finally showed up at the cabin later that afternoon. The mechanic, a broad man in his 50s, frowned when he heard where they were staying. "You didn't tell me you were at Hollow Lake." Claire nodded nervously. "Why? What's wrong with it?" He hesitated, then sighed. "People around here don't like to talk about it. That lake, it takes people. Been happening for decades. Folks see their loved ones calling to them from the water. They follow the voices. They don't come back." Claire's blood ran cold. "You're saying what we saw." The man cut her off. "I'm saying you should leave. Tonight. Don't let that water near your brother again." That night, Claire refused to sleep. She sat in the cabin's living room with a kitchen knife clutched tight. Around 2 a.m., the whispering began again. It was faint at first. Her mother's voice, soft and familiar. "Claire, Ethan, come home." Then the sound multiplied. Dozens of voices layered together, men, women, children, all calling from the lake. The walls of the cabin seemed to vibrate with their whispers. Ethan stirred, his eyes glazed, as he tried to walk toward the door again. Claire held him back, but the whispers grew louder, angrier. She heard footsteps sloshing outside, as if something was climbing from the water. The front window fogged up. Slowly, from the outside, a handprint pressed against the glass. Then another, and another, dozens of wet, pale hands. Claire dragged Ethan into the bedroom and barricaded the door with furniture. The whispers turned into guttural screams, shaking the cabin. She held Ethan, whispering prayers, until the noise suddenly stopped. By sunrise, the cabin was silent. Claire wasted no time. She carried Ethan to the car, praying it would start. Miraculously, the engine roared to life. Without looking back, she sped down the forest road. Hours later, she reached the same mechanic's shop in town. She stumbled inside, desperate to thank him, but the man looked confused. "I never came to your cabin last night. I don't do night calls out there." "Too dangerous," Claire froze. "But you fixed the car. You told me about the lake." The man shook his head slowly. "Ma'am, I don't know who you spoke to. But whatever got that car running, it wasn't me." Claire felt her blood turn to ice. She turned to Ethan, but he was staring blankly at the floor, humming the same eerie tune from before. When she asked him what was wrong, he looked up with hollow eyes and whispered, "They let us leave, but I promised I'd come back." My name is Aaron Mitchell, and what I'm about to share happened just a few weeks ago in a small town called Ravenshade, Oregon. My parents had recently moved there after years of talking about downsizing. Once I was set to leave for college, they finally bought a modest old house on the edge of town. I'd only been there a few times before they left for a week-long vacation, leaving me in charge of the place. The first night alone, everything felt normal, until around midnight. That's when I heard it, a steady tapping noise coming from directly beneath my bedroom floor. The strange part? According to my parents, the house didn't have a basement, just a crawl space for utilities. So what was I hearing beneath me? The second night, the sounds returned, this time louder. The tapping was followed by a low dragging noise, like something heavy being scraped across concrete. I grabbed a flashlight and walked the room, trying to pinpoint it. The sound seemed to move with me, always just beneath the floor. The next morning I called my parents. My dad brushed it off. "Old houses make noises, Aaron. Probably pipes or raccoons, but I couldn't shake the feeling." That night, the noises grew worse, scraping, pounding, then silence, as if whatever was down there knew I was listening. The crawl space hatch was under the porch. I forced myself to check it out. Heart hammering. Nothing. No animals, no intruders, just darkness and dust. But I wasn't convinced. The following day, I decided to search the property more carefully. Behind a pile of old construction debris, rusty pipes, rotting wood, and tarps, I found something I'd never seen before. A metal storm door, half buried in dirt, its hinges rusted solid. With effort, I pried it open. Cold air wafted up from the darkness below. Concrete steps descended into what could only be a hidden basement. My parents had sworn the house didn't have one. They were wrong. The basement smelled of mildew and rot. On the floor were empty food cans, torn blankets, and burned down candles. Someone had been living here. Worse, carved into the wooden beams were scratches, tallies, and disturbing drawings. Twisted shapes of people and animals, violent scenes etched with obsessive precision. I bolted upstairs, slammed the storm door shut, and tried to pretend I hadn't seen it. That night, I was jarred awake by violent banging. The storm door outside rattled like someone was furiously trying to force it open. I froze. The pounding grew louder, shaking the floor. Then, suddenly, it stopped. I crept to the window, pulling the curtain back just in time to see a shadowy figure sprinting across the backyard into the trees. I couldn't see their face, but I knew this wasn't some harmless drifter. Whoever had been in that basement wanted back in. The police searched the property the next day. They found nothing. Could have been a trespasser, they said, promising extra patrols. My parents cut their vacation short. They swore everything would be fine now that they were home, but I couldn't shake the dread. I left for college the following morning, trying to convince myself it was over. 3 nights later, my phone rang. It was my mom. Her voice was shaky. "Aaron, someone's been down there. There are new drawings on the basement walls, fresh ones. Of us." The call dropped. I tried calling back. No answer. Again and again. And then, silence. The last image burned into my memory is what she described. Those walls covered in grotesque sketches, one of them showing me, my mom, and my dad, lying dead in our own house.